Hello, everybody. This is Georgianne Hughes, and this is The Bite Show. And we're really blessed to have Olaf Hage with us. You can find Olaf's audio files at The Bite Show. Go to the audio library, click on Olaf Hage's name, and his page will open up with lots of audio files and interesting information. Don't miss his personal website, theTimeQuest.com. And you can write to Olaf Hage at Post Office Box 427, Brunswick, Maine 04011. And I think Olaf has got it planned tonight to talk about the Mark of the Beast. Hi, Olaf.
Hi, Georgianne. Yeah, I want to make sure people know, because this happens a lot. People think the abbreviation for Maine is MA. That's Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Our abbreviation is ME for those who use that, or spell it out, MAINE.
Yeah.
And you might want to do that, because what I'm going to talk about is just the tip of the iceberg of what I have found about the mark, the beast, and that whole subject matter. And so what I hope people will do is at least drop me a note saying I'd like to be on your mailing list when you announce your things, that special things that might be available. You can put an email address in there as well, and I'll make sure to email you when the time comes if we have something that we want to announce that we can't necessarily do a radio show at that particular time.
And please write legibly.
Yes, legibly. We want to be able to legible you.
Yeah.
But if you want to read it, yeah.
Yeah.
You can letter it or print it, as my nuns used to tell me. So, the Mark of the Beast. You're probably hearing a lot of stuff about the Mark of the Beast. There are new books out telling you that it's a microchip. And there's a lot of fans of this theory that it's a microchip. Now, Dr. Catherine Albrecht, who's been overcoming a bout with cancer and is Harvard educated, not a dumb lady. She's a smart lady. She's looked into this microchip thing, and she's totally against the microchip, and she works hard against it. But she's not willing to say that that's necessarily the mark of the beast. So I want to point that out. She's not necessarily saying that. But there are other people who have written books arguing that the microchip is the mark of the beast. Okay? I'm going to prove to you it's not.
Oh, good.
Yes, you can breathe a sigh of relief until I tell you what it is, and then you're going to feel a little queasy. But let me put this into its proper context. There's so much more we can say about this, so please don't think that I'm covering this subject exhaustively here. This is a microcosm so that you will at least know the basics of what the problem is. First of all, the beast isn't ruling yet. You can't have the mark of the beast until the beast has not only started to rule, but has been wounded mortally, has recovered, and then an image of the beast has to be made. And then after the image is made and people are ordered to worship the image of the beast, then in the process of this, everybody is supposed to receive this mark so that they can't buy or sell unless they have the mark or the authorizing name. The word in Greek here, onomata, means the authority of the beast, really. Its authorizing name. Or the mark, the number, or the authorizing name. Now that means, if you think about it, that there's an equivalence between these three things. A mark, a number, and some kind of authority, some kind of authorizing name. We'll find out what these things might be in a moment here. Now, that means that since these things haven't occurred yet, that, that this mark that the Bible is talking about isn't here yet. But when it talks about people getting sores and people being condemned by God in the context of this mark, it always says that you must also worship the beast, worship its image. So unless you do that, all the rest of this stuff is, it's just technology. You have to understand the distinction here. It's when you do these things and worship the image of the beast that you get in trouble.
Good point.
Okay, now, and you can look at, there's several passages in Revelation where it talks about that, and every time it includes the word worship as part of what you've got to do. Now, that is, if you really want to get sores all over your face or whatever, and get punished for all of that. I mean, it actually takes a lot to piss God off. It really does, when you understand all that's involved here. Now, the first thing we're told about all of this is actually in chapter 12 of Revelation, before you get into 13. And there are other references scattered throughout the book of Revelation about the topic. But in Revelation 12, we find there's a war between Michael and his angels and the dragon, which is the devil, Satan, that old serpent, it's called several different things there, and his angels. And their place was no longer found in heaven, which is kind of an interesting concept, and I go into that a lot as well in my CDs and reports and everything. And so they are cast down to the earth. And they come down and they realize their time is short. And we notice that the woman who has borne Christ, who has been caught up to the throne of God in heaven, that's already taken place. So this is a war that occurs, this war in heaven between Michael and the dragon, occurs during the Christian era. Have you seen it yet? Have you seen Michael and the dragon carrying out this big battle in heaven? Did you see Satan cast down during this period following the ascension of Christ back into heaven during the Christian era? I haven't seen it. I must have missed it. Now there are some old etchings from the 1500s, the 16th century, as it's otherwise called, from 1561 and 1566, that show over Europe, over Central Europe, over Basel, Switzerland, and Nuremberg, Germany, in the sky, a great battle being fought between two sets of what appear to be UFOs. Now, is that the battle? Well, remember, Satan and his angels have to be cast down at that time. And you would have to say, well, gee, 1561, 1565, that doesn't seem to relate to anything specific. But you know what was happening at that time? The Geneva Bible was being published. The Douay version of the Bible was being put together. This was the time frame that immediately preceded the King James Version. The Great Bible and the Bishop's Bible were being produced in Europe, at about that time. So if you're going to argue that that's it, then you'd have to argue, it seems to me, that the English translations of the Bible have something to do with the power of Satan on the earth. I don't think anybody wants to go that route. So I think that's a dubious way to interpret this. I just don't think this battle has occurred yet. I think there's going to be a battle that nobody's going to doubt, nobody's going to question, everybody is going to agree that that is a real war in heaven, and that they're going to see things cast down to the earth in profusion, they're going to interpret this as some kind of heavenly sign. And as I said, I don't think this has occurred yet. I don't think there's much doubt about that, because we're told that the power of the dragon is then transferred to the beast. And then the beast has 7 heads, only one of which receives a mortal wound. Now, we are told that, some of these heads have fallen. There's one then ruling in John's day, and there's one yet to come. Which one got wounded? See, now, we don't have time to get into that. But you can see here that there's obviously something else there that needs to happen before we ever get to the point of having the official mark of the beast that you can worship. And we're told that after the beast recovers from his wound, that the whole world wonders after the beast. They're amazed by him. And they begin to worship the beast, saying, who's like the beast, who can wage war against him? And then we're told that he is given the power to wage war on the saints and to overcome them. And then he is given power over all the nations of the world, and everyone worships the beast and the dragon, that's Satan, who gave power to the beast. So if everybody's going to be worshiping Satan, what on earth could be happening? Do you think that's going on now? Frankly, again, I don't see that as the situation at the moment. And I think it's only after all of this that the mark of the beast shows up. The reason I'm giving you all this preamble is because I want you to be clear about something. Whatever technology is out there right now, whatever looks like the mark of the beast, whatever fits that description, it's merely the technological capability to make something that becomes the mark of the beast. It isn't the mark itself, because the mark is tied into the authority of the beast, the dragon, and the one who enforces this, usually called the false prophet. So, and these references to worship, false prophet, Antichrist, as John the Apostle refers to him in his first and second epistles, these references indicate a religious aspect to this global rulership. Nothing like that is currently happening. Okay, so you've got to have some amazing things take place that have not yet occurred. And the cutting short of the days, which is referenced near the end of chapter 12, and described in more detail in Revelation 8, where it talks about a third of the day and a third of the night being taken away. To do that requires a very large gravitational body, a planet-sized object, to come very close to the Earth and spin up our rotation. Something big has to happen. I once thought that something would have to hit us to do that, but in the more I studied the scientific aspects of that, the more convinced I became that if something did that simply by hitting us, it would kill all life on the planet.
Yeah.
It'd kill it. So that's not going to happen. I mean, I don't mean that things aren't going to hit us. A lot of things will, but they won't kill everybody. But the spinning up of the rotation to cut the day short, that would have to be a large gravitational mass, a planet-sized body, cosmic planet, moving very close to the Earth in the direction of rotation on that side of the planet. So it would have to be on the side of the planet in the direction it's rotating, and that means that if it's coming toward us in the opposite direction from which we orbit the sun, it'll be on one side of the Earth, and if it's paralleling our orbit, then it would be on the other side of the Earth. So whether it's on the dark or light side depends on whether it's a prograde or retrograde orbit for the object. And again, that's too much to get into, except that you can listen to the files we've done with Georgianne about Typhon, or you can write to me at that P.O. Box 427 in Brunswick, Maine, 04011, and I'll put you on the list for when I announce more information about the new reports that I'm going to be issuing on this. So you can see the footnotes, you can see all the references, and all the detailed discussion, which is far too much to get into over an audio file. So what we can see is that all of these events that have to take place before the mark of the beast, the shortening of the days and stuff like that, these are titanic events involving massive cosmic bodies coming by the earth, war in heaven that everybody's going to see, dramatic changes in global geopolitics, obviously massive changes in the world's religious outlook. All of this has yet to occur. And therefore, worshiping the image of the beast by anything you do now, even if the mark itself in some sense were already out there, it doesn't count yet. Okay? You don't have that clear religious, political choice or decision being laid before you. And this can't occur until there's been a command requiring you to worship the image of the beast, requiring you to use whatever this mark is, and so forth, as a global thing after a global dictatorship has been established. So you can relax. Whatever's out there right now, that's not the mark. Okay? No matter what they inject in you, not that you should let them do that, but whatever they inject in you, that isn't it. Okay? So that's the good news. Now that you're relaxed and I've softened you up, here's the bad news. We know exactly what the mark is. The text is extremely explicit in telling you what it is. First of all, we are told that it is a mark. Now, a chip is not a mark. Something injected into your blood is not a mark. The word mark in the Greek text is charagma. It comes from the Greek root charax. A charax is a rampart of pointed stakes, a kind of a hostile picket fence that was put up on a hilltop, artificially created generally, of soft earth surrounding a city under a siege. So it's a way to imprison a city. The stakes are basically branches of trees that are cut down, sharpened at each end. One end is stuck into the soft mound of earth that surrounds the city, the circumvallium, as it's called in Latin, because this is a Roman siege work. And the stake that comes out of it is pointed at the other end as well. So if you come up the soft earth to try to escape from the city, your feet sink down into the dirt, and if it's been raining, into the mud, and then you're confronted by a row of pointed stakes, and if you should slip and fall coming up the hill, you will fall onto these sharp stakes and be impaled. Isn't that nice? Don't you think that's a wonderful idea? Well, if you're Roman, yeah, it's a wonderful idea. You just sit there and watch these idiots coming out of the city and impaling themselves on the stake as they try to escape. You hardly have to do anything. And they had these long spears, or pikes, as they were called, P-I-K-E. And they would wait, and if anybody got as far as the stakes and got through there without, being impaled, they'd impale them on the spear, because they were still standing in the soft earth and they could barely move. They were slogging through this stuff. And so this whole system was just it was a crude, simplistic, but brutally efficient way to prevent anybody from escaping from the city alive. It's a very efficient method of basically capturing a city. And then you just wait for them to starve. And eventually they surrender. Now, it preserved the lives of the Roman soldiers, and there was a reason why they wanted to do that. The Romans believed, like the British, that you should be a citizen, and they don't want an army of foreigners, of paid mercenaries. A lot of people in that time used paid mercenaries, but the Romans, at least for their initial history, didn't do that. They sent their own Roman patrician sons out to fight. And that's why you see Prince Harry and Prince William going off and serving in the British military for years on end. It seems like they never leave. You know, how long these guys have been doing their military service now? Like 10 years or something? And this is from the old Roman tradition. The British royal family goes back to the Electors of Saxony, who were the heirs of the Holy Roman Empire. And that means Charlemagne, who in turn was the heir of the Roman Empire that preceded him. So you could argue that that's the sixth head of the beast. See, it's just an extension of it. But where is the seventh head? See, there's another head that you have to figure out who that is. So in trying to determine who the beast is, you can get yourself bogged down in the soft earth of the rampart, if you will, of this siege, without paying attention to what exactly this mark is. Because what are we told here? It looks like a row of pointed stakes. It's that kind of mark. It looks like a rampart of sharp pointed stakes. Thin, long, sharp stakes, or a number that's equivalent to that row of stakes, or some authorizing name. Well, if you look at a barcode on, say, a can of soup, okay, you see on that barcode, you see a mark of pointed stakes, of lines. It looks very similar to what a rampart would look like. And then down at the bottom, underneath the row of lines, is a number. And that number is equivalent to the mark you see above it. That is directly above the numbers. I'll explain what those other marks that aren't directly above the numbers refer to a little later. But if you look at them, you'll notice that there's some sort of code there. Now, to trick people, so to make it harder for you to figure out what the lines mean, they reverse them in the second set. So one set of lines is done in a positive image. The second set of lines is done as if it were a photographic negative of the lines. So if you find a number that matches a number in the first set of lines and the second set of lines, you look above it, and the mark looks totally different. And you're thinking, well, gee, I can't figure out what these numbers mean. Well, the reason for that is they switched to a negative display of the lines in the second set. That's to keep it difficult for people to interpret what they're looking at. And why they want to do this? Well, you're going to find out. I'm going to tell you, but not just yet. That's the punchline of our little story here. So, as they're doing this, keep in mind that they're giving a system that if for some reason the laser checkout machine can't read those lines, they will type in the number. You've probably had that happen. They said, it's not reading for some reason, and then the guy looks at the number on the label underneath the mark, and he types the number in instead. Now, if for some reason the number doesn't take, he can type in the name of the product. He can type that into the machine. That rarely happens, but he can type the name in, Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup, and that will give him the same result. And what's that result? It's the price. And no matter which of these three methods is used, out comes on that receipt, the checkout receipt, the same information. It prints the same thing. 1 can Campbell's chicken noodle soup, 16 ounces, whatever it is. I don't think it's that big, but whatever it is, and the price. And so you can get that price so that you can buy or sell by one of 3 methods. Now, that's exactly what this text is telling you. When it says or, the name or the number or the mark, it's saying that those things are in some way equivalent. So we can see clearly here that they are using a system that is almost exactly what the barcode is. But notice this key part here. It says you can't buy or sell unless you have the mark or the number or the name. That is the authorizing name. Well, gee, you can't sell. What does that mean? You mean the guy, every time there's a transaction, the checkout has to be scanned? Maybe that clerk there who's doing this, they have to be scanned? I don't think so. What are they scanning? They're scanning the can. They're scanning the label on the can. It's the can that's being scanned. So in other words, you can't sell unless the can you're selling, the product you're selling, has the mark on it, on the face of it, or the number, or this authorizing name that can be used to get the same information, in other words, so that the purchase can occur. Now, it says only if you worship the image of the beast are you going to get these swords. Well, what does that mean? Well, the word worship meant literally to bow down and touch your forehead to the ground. Bow down to the ground and touch your forehead to the ground. This was considered a sign of humility. Now, you'll notice, remember how the Pope used to go around to all these countries and he'd bow down and kiss the ground? He'd be worshiping that country, so to speak, humbling himself before the country. Well, in this case, you'd be bowing down and putting your forehead to the beast. Well, wait a second. Here are the image of the beast. I think that what you're touching your forehead to is part of this machinery at the checkout that scans the can of tomatoes or chicken noodle soup or whatever that you're buying. So they're scanning your forehead. Now, we know that this is already occurring. Now, let me explain what I mean. Cattle in this country, when you eat beef, most of the beef sold in America, unless it's some kind of organic beef or whatever, but the general slaughterhouse meat that you find in your supermarket, that animal has had a carbon dioxide laser carve a mark, just like this, a barcode, into its forehead. And they've actually burned it in with a carbon dioxide laser that goes through their skin, but then burns into the bone of the forehead. And you can't see anything from the outside because they slaughtered the animals within 3 years or so of their birth. So they're not very old. I mean, if you think of little 3-year-old children being led off to a slaughterhouse, it gives you some idea. You're not going to see skin cancer developing. But if you were to do this on a human being and you had 7 years or longer for that to fester, so to speak, you could see sores. You could see cancer, skin cancer developing. So the potential here for mischief is obviously very great in terms of the health consequences. But you'd have to bow down and worship, as it were, this machine at the checkout in order to get these swords. And this begins to give you an idea that, well, gee, we're not doing that. Yeah, we aren't. But the cattle, the meat that you eat, they're doing it. They're getting scanned. They're getting marked like that.
It's ghoulish.
It is ghoulish. It's not, your goulash is ghoulish. You know? So this process is actually taking place in terms of the technology, but that's not the beast yet. You see, this is why I went through that preamble of stuff about prophecy, because you have to see the context. You have to realize that we are not there yet. This is not the kingdom of the beast. It's not this global world-ruling government. These things, I mean, we're moving in that direction, no question that they want to do that, but it's not here yet. They're putting in place the technologies and the political organizations and so forth. And if something happened with a big planetary body moving close to the Earth, and by the way, it will not be Nibiru, but as I've explained about Typhon elsewhere in our discussions, but if that were to occur, that would give them an excuse, you see, to declare global martial law, to declare a global government. And you can well understand how the technologies that are out there could be adapted for this kind of global system. Now, it says you can't buy or sell without this mark. So why not? Well, it must be obvious here. If currency were still being used, paper money, gold, silver, coins, that sort of thing, if that were still being used to make purchases, then there'd be no way for them to prevent you from buying and selling without the mark. But this must be a world in which all transactions are electronic. It must be a world where everything is digital money, electronic money, e-money, whatever you want to call it. So again, it's another part of the technological preparation necessary for the mark of the beast to occur. But wait a second. After this big planet comes by, after the Earth gets spun up 50% faster on its axis to cut the day short by a third, after that happens, and there's this war in heaven and all this debris hitting the Earth and a lot of chaos, you still have electricity? You still have the internet? You're still going to the supermarket and scanning cans of soup? And there's a global digital money system? And a global police force? Okay, that means that whatever happens here, they're going to rebuild what's been destroyed to create a world where this is possible. So again, not only do all those other things have to happen first, it all has to get rebuilt after the destruction that occurs when a third of the day and a third of the night are taken away. Read chapter 8 of Revelation. There's a lot of debris hitting the earth and a lot of people dying. That's not a fun time. And that's between us and the mark of the beast. Again, that hasn't happened yet. So we're not there. So don't be afraid of these things. You know, this is given to us. All this information is given to us so that you won't be deceived or misled and confused. God's given us more than enough information here. Now, he talks about the sign of this mark that's carved into the forehead, so to speak, but he also talks about a seal of God, a different kind of sign or a symbol of God, but the word there in the Greek means something impressed in soft clay. So what's the difference between these two things? Well, the difference is the receiving medium. In one case, it's something hard. And when the beast makes his mark, he forces it into you like a laser burning its way into bone, or a chisel into granite, or somebody taking their fingernails and scratching you on the forehead. That's what they used to do to mark a slave. And I suspect that that's the kind of mark that John was thinking of when he received this message, and he was thinking, oh, it must be like that. Somebody must take their fingernails and mark you that way. But then there was a number associated with it, you see. So this is something that's done by force. But you'll notice that the seal of God, which is contrasted with it, that's something that is impressed into soft clay. So, in other words, your forehead there is soft. It's like the skin on your forehead is soft, but the bone is hard. God talks about them having foreheads of brass and, stiff-necked, and the idea is that when he's criticizing his people, he's talking about how hard-headed they are. But when he's talking about the receipt of the gospel, he's talking about how soft and humble they are, how meek they are, how compliant. Okay, so the difference between God's mark and the mark of the beast is that the mark of the beast is something gouged into you against your will by force, and the seal of God is something that you receive that won't make a mark unless you are soft enough to receive it, unless you humble yourself to basically ask for it, to receive it. So there's a difference between what is forced upon you and what is voluntarily received. The contrast here. Now, obviously, there's a spiritual layer of meaning, but there's also this physical, monetary, financial, governmental, political layer of meaning. And we know what that's going to be in terms of Christ because it refers to after he comes to rule as the Messiah. But the beast comes first, and we're given to believe that he is the false Christ, the fake Christ, the one that people think of as Christ, and they think the one who has empowered him is God, but it's really Satan. So, in a way, he is mimicking God. He is mimicking Christ. He is mimicking, if you will, the good guys. And people are deceived. It says the whole world is deceived by them. And there are miracles performed by the false prophet. So there are false prophecies, which may come true in some cases, but they're false because of who's giving them and why. And that it's used to deceive people. So that's a different approach to things, in other words. So now we have a mark. And we are told that you can't buy or sell unless you've got this mark or the number equivalent. Clearly, it's going to be something very similar to the barcode. Now, why is this bad news? I mean, I keep telling you, these things haven't happened yet. You can relax and so on. But wait. There is a new digital code out there that people are using with their cell phones. It's a bunch of dots, and it's a little square box, and it's got circles in the corner and so forth. That's not the mark of the beast. But that's a new digital technology. So it means that whatever's going to shorten the days and start this ball rolling must be coming soon. Because if it weren't coming soon, they wouldn't be resorting to this already existing but in some ways outmoded digital barcode technology. They would be moving on to more advanced technologies, more advanced forms of mark, and newer systems. But they're not. They're going to use the one we've got now. And that, it seems to me, means that it can't be too far down the road. So even though it's clearly not here now, it can't be very far away. So I think that we're getting close. I would, just as a crude estimate, I'd say probably we're within a decade of the beginning of these series of events here. That within 10 years or so, you're going to know that you're headed into these events, and I don't think there will be anybody on the planet who doesn't doubt that something really bad is going on. So I think we're getting close to it. And I don't think the technology of the barcode is going to disappear before this happens. So you keep your eyes on those barcodes, and you start to see them going off the soup cans and being replaced with something else, then I would say you better look up because your redemption is at hand. Because we're getting very, very close to the end. Now, so how do we know for sure, though? Well, John gives us a clue. Right at the end of chapter 13, he says, now, if you want to know for sure what I'm talking about, he says there's a number associated with it. It's a human number. It's a man-made number that's going to be part of this mark, this beast system. And he says that this number is 666, or 666. Well, is there a 666 associated with the barcode? You betcha. I'm going to show it to you. Get any barcode, any can of soup that you want. It's divided into two parts. The first set of numbers you see, those first 5 numbers, those numbers are the seller. That's the person who's selling it to you, or the company. Generally speaking, it'll stand for Procter & Gamble or Campbell Soup or whatever. They all have their own unique number. If you check several different cans from the same company, you'll see that those first 5 numbers are the same for that company. The last 5 numbers, the second part of the code, represent the item, the particular product. And those numbers will vary. Each product that they sell, the 10-ounce can of condensed soup and the 16-ounce can of soup that's got water added into it or whatever it might be, those will have each individual unique numbers. But now look between those. You will notice that between those two sets, there are 2 fine lines that come all the way down and don't have a number below them. And if you look at the beginning, there's 2 fine lines, again, with no number below them. And at the end, there are 2 fine lines, and again, no number. Well, obviously, if you look at these barcodes, you can tell that those lines must represent some number that's repeated 3 times. If you look at your barcode labels, and you look at them carefully and find 6s, look directly above them. Now, one set is a mirror image. It's a negative image, like a photographic negative. The other one is straight. Okay, when you find the one that's straight and you look at it that is a positive image, you will see that above the 6, no matter which code you look at, wherever there's a 6, are 2 fine lines. So your barcode reads 6, the 5-digit number of the company, 6, the 5-digit number of the product, 6. But they don't show you the 3 6s. They have deliberately hidden them from you.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay? So the barcode, every single one of these barcodes that has the complete barcode on it, sometimes they have a shorter version, but whenever you see the full barcode like that, the number 666 is encoded into it, and you can't see it. That tells me that somebody told John these things. He had no way to know that from looking. He could have all the visions of the world. It wouldn't have explained to him what that number was. Somebody had to tell him that it was there and tell us to look for it. And listen, it says, here is wisdom. Let him who has wisdom calculate the number of the beast. What does he mean by that? It means you can't see it. You have to calculate it. You have to figure it out, which is exactly what we just did.
Wow.
So, the mark of the beast, the technology is there now. And notice, they're using the exact system that we are currently using. So they're going to use this technology. But the system doesn't go into place until the beast is here, and you have to worship the beast. Now, there is a thing going on that is designed to push you to do this, to worship the beast. That is to get a carbon dioxide laser burn your barcode number into your forehead, which will look like this one with the mark 666 in it. Do you understand? Okay, and in order to get you to do that, they have figured out a scam, a trick, a deception that tricks people into getting the mark. We're told that that is going to occur. That's one of the things. He deceives the whole world into getting this mark and worshiping this beast and worshiping the number of the beast and so forth. How does he get them to do that? The answer is on every conservative talk show. Oh, I know this is creepy. It's all of those ads for identity theft. Because the reason you get this mark put on your forehead is to prove that you are who you are. It's your identity, to secure your identity. So identity theft is the thing that is being promoted. So who's stealing your ID?
The government.
Oh, your identity is being stolen by all these people who apparently go out, they take your credit card numbers and information, they go out and they start buying stuff on the internet and downloading iTunes or whatever using your credit card number and stuff like that. Okay, I give that as an example because it happened to me this year. So how in the world is it possible that this stuff is going on? Because it is so easy to catch these people. I want you to think about it a minute. They're downloading something over the internet to what? To their computer, to their cell phone, to their iPad. Well, hello. Not only is that a unique code, that's a unique address that's tied to one individual, and it wasn't me, it was them. But there's a GPS device built into that device usually. If it's an iPad, if it's any kind of mobile device, there's a GPS locator. They can find them. Okay, so they know where this person is, and they probably know who it is. They don't arrest them. They just let them keep stealing people's credit card numbers. It's stealing their money. It's stealing their identities. They'll do a few token arrests here and there, but usually they don't do anything to the vast majority of the ID thieves. They go out, they do all kinds of stuff, and essentially they wring their hands and they say, well, we're just not getting enough funding. We've got 3 full-time people working on this, and there's only so much they can do. And they wring their hands, and meanwhile, the politicians refuse to fund them. They don't want them funded. They don't want there to be enough people to track them down and put a stop to this. They want identity theft to continue and get worse, so that you're forced to receive the mark. And if you, I was just thinking, for example, I got, when they did this to my credit card, there were things being purchased in small towns, little locations, where the person was located, okay, and little stores, and you know that in some of these stores they actually could have video where they're looking at the buyer. And if you could identify the transaction, they could tell the exact minute it was purchased. And then they could see who the person was doing it. They could arrest these people. It's easy. It's not hard. The technology exists today to arrest virtually all identity thieves that carry out these purchases within the United States and Canada and many European countries, if not all of them. There's no reason why any of those ID thieves should ever go uncaught or unpunished. And they ought to be caught within days, not years or months, within days, if not minutes, of doing this. So the question is, why do they let this happen? The answer, of course, as I said before, they want it to happen. They want identity theft to get out of control. They do not want to fund it, that is, the police or the people who investigate and track this down. They don't want to fund it.
You bet they want it out of control. This online banking crap is very, very dangerous.
Well, I don't do it.
I don't either.
But I got to tell you, your bank does it with your account.
Yeah.
Even though you don't do it. Now, so people might be saying, well, okay, I might as well do it. Wait a second. That means if anything happens to that account, it's their fault and their responsibility. They can't say you did something.
Right.
Okay? Because if you're not using it, then they're the solely responsible for it. Okay? Now, I've never had a problem with mine because I don't use it. But they have, people put devices, this is something I want to warn you about. People put devices at ATMs to monitor all of the things that people are typing in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they can be little electronic devices. You might even think it's a piece of chewing gum. You say, ooh, I'm not going to touch that. But it might actually be inside it an electronic device that's monitoring what's going on there.
Yeah.
You go to the post office. They have a little thing where you scan your credit card. And if you want to make a purchase, and postage is getting super expensive, it's going up again. Well, you're holding your card in your hand, and now very few of us are like 7 feet tall. So when you take your card out of your purse or your wallet, you're usually holding it just below the counter. Did you ever look underneath the counter to see if there's a device under there to pick up the RFID chip on your card? You know that shiny little oval on the card? That's an RFID chip in there.
They're selling metal wallets, and I would advise anybody to get one. I think they're only $10, and keep your credit cards and things like that in that kind of a wallet.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that's adequate. I've tested aluminum and I've tested other things to see how much protection they provide against the electromagnetic radiation signals and so forth, and it's not really a whole lot. I mean, it'll protect you against alpha radiation or something like that, but a lot of this stuff is designed to penetrate through several layers of God knows what, and to broadcast, 3, 5 feet, 10 feet, something like that. So I would suggest to you that maybe the wallets are better, if they got metal in them, although you're capable of putting a piece of metal in your own wallet. Just insert it in there. But you might want to consider ordering a little bit of lead. There are companies, if you go online, where you can order a small piece of lead for a minimal amount of money, and you can use that to shield various things that you use, including wallets, purses, and stuff like that. If you have a cell phone and you wear it on your body,
oh dear,
oh my, yeah. I mean, a lot of people. And here's something. I know somebody who used to put their their cell phone in their breast pocket over their heart.
Oh my gosh.
And one side of the phone has the broadcast signal in it down the corner.
Yeah.
It was an iPhone. And they used to say, well, don't hold it there because then you won't get a signal. Mm-hmm. Or it'll reduce the number of bars or whatever you want to call it. And so this thing was broadcasting. And it pings, the cell tower every few minutes. This thing was broadcasting out that side of the phone. Well, the guy gets a heart attack.
Oh.
Okay, but it's only one artery. The other arteries are clear. It's just the one artery off on the side where the cell phone was.
I don't even own one.
And I'll tell you what it is. That signal is an irritant.
Yeah.
It's like inflammation.
Yes.
And what happens is that the artery is hot, and the body tries to cool it down by putting calcium and cholesterol and pasting it onto the wall of the artery because it thinks it's infected. It's trying to patch it.
Yeah.
Trying to cool it down because it wants to keep the blood insulated from the hot artery. I know this sounds complicated, but basically what's happening is the signal from the cell phone can be cooking your artery.
Yeah.
And the body then responds by saying, "Oh, we better, put a little plaster on the wall here to keep it cool in here. We got to put some insulation up. Put some, pump in some of that styrofoam." So they kept doing it until the artery clogged up and he had a heart attack. Now the same thing can happen if you put the cell phone down. Some people wear it on their waist, on their belt. And then they discover that one leg, they get some clogged arteries in the leg, and they begin to get sharp pain, and the leg gets weak. And you see what's happening here? You're cooking yourself.
Yeah.
Now, if you put it up next to your head to use it, it starts cooking your brain.
Yes.
I'm not making that up. You can ask it. Just Google it. Go search or whatever it is that Catherine Albrecht tells you to do. You get start page it. Yes. But you go check it out because you're going to find that the cell phone is literally cooking your head while you're using it.
Yes.
And you will feel your head getting warmer and warmer and warmer the longer you do that. A lot of electronic devices cook us, and that includes laptop computers, iPads. What are they saying? The new iPad, alias iPad 3, runs hotter than the preceding iPads. Well, if you got that thing in your lap, you're cooking whatever is underneath of it. And you can imagine what people have underneath their laps. Well, I know somebody who was using one of these laptop computers on their lap in bed, spent hours in bed at night, emailing and Twittering and tweeting and whatever else people do these days. And they developed cancer down there. Now, they're basically, you're cooking yourself. You're having yourself for dinner. This is not a good idea. You don't want electronic devices to be toasting and roasting it. Okay, I suggest that if you get one of those pads that it's sort of like beanbag type thing with a flat surface on the top. I don't know what they call that, like a portable lap desk.
Yeah.
Okay. And then put a sheet of lead on top of it. Okay, and then cover that with something like I don't know, a piece of cardboard or something, whatever. Tape it down there, and then put your laptop on top of that. That'll protect at least whatever's underneath of it, but it still radiates out to the side. So you might want to put a lip up in the front to help stop some of that radiation coming toward you. Now, you can take an ordinary radio, battery-powered radio, and tune it to an AM station, a Rush Limbaugh station, okay, and then turn it all the way down to the bottom. I don't like any interference from all of these talking heads. So turn it all the way down to the bottom if you don't want to worry about these other signals so you don't get confused. And turn up the volume. And then carry it around your house, around your cell phones, your iPads, your telephones, your computers, your wall circuits, your lamps, everything. To my shock and surprise, the microwave hardly produced anything. Now, you know how dangerous microwaves are said to be? Okay? There was hardly any signal at all picked up around the microwave. A baseboard electric heater, there's a lot of power going through that thing. 1,500, maybe 3,000 watts, depending on how big it is. Hardly any signal. But when I took it near telephone equipment of any kind, whether it's wired or not, that thing screams like a banshee. Okay? In other words, it's producing tremendous amounts of radiation. In front of your computer, in front of a TV screen, the back of a TV screen. Okay? My neighbor's television on the other side of the wall in the next condo over, I can tell you the exact spot it's located in using a radio.
Yeah.
Do the same with your neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay? And the laptop computer, I couldn't get anywhere near it, even when it was off. That's how bad the radiation coming out of it was. I mean, it was plugged in, but it was off.
Yeah, they have to be unplugged.
Yeah, you got to unplug it. And, of course, Kim Commando tells you to take the battery out and put it in your freezer when it's unplugged. I don't know about that. But anyway. But the thing is that there's tons of radiation around you. You are going to be shocked, pun intended, when you find out what is giving off radiation. And then you're going to go online and you're going to start ordering lead, which is what I did. I don't want that radiation. And let me tell you something. I do these audio recordings. I try my best to get all of these extraneous electronic background signals and static and stuff out of it. And there's my neighbor a few feet away blasting away with his TV set even when it's off.
Oh.
All that radiation coming out, and obviously it affects the quality of the recordings that I can do. And I can't stop it. I mean, it's there. It's his. I can't tell him what he could do in his own home. So it's extremely important for people to find out what's producing radiation, try to stay away from it as much as possible. You may have mysterious aches and pains and other physical problems that are due to where you're sitting, and you go and take that radio and put it in that chair and see if that signal suddenly starts going bananas because it's picking up the radiation from something behind or next to the chair that you've never even thought about. People have little electronic back warmers or other devices that they sit down next to the chair. So then they watch TV for hours. Of course, the TV is radioactive in terms of producing activity on your radio. That's what radio activity means. I check my tuna fish cans.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, frankly, we are being bombarded with ever-increasing amounts of radiation. God's not doing this to us. We're doing it to ourselves. This is what we're doing to each other, and to ourselves, and to our families, and to our children. Oh, I'm going to give my kid a new computer. What kind of computer should I give the child? Never does the expert answer, well, why don't you check it first for radiation before you give your child a computer?
Good point.
Why don't you take a little battery-powered radio with you to the store with some earplugs and check it out in the store before you buy it? You know, they want to buy it from Amazon, so they don't pay a lot of money for it. But you don't know what you're going to get. And you don't know how much radiation it's going to produce. So while everybody is worried about the mark of the beast giving them a sore, you're already getting skin cancers and other types of cancers and heart disease and kidney problems and all kinds of things from the electronic devices you're already using. It's already happening to you. That's the bad news. We're already suffering some of the consequences of unrestricted use of electromagnetic radiation that we have not seen fit to protect people against. Now, some of them, like microwaves, they're required to meet certain standards, and that's why they hardly register. But these other devices, telephones, anything in the communications and computer field is totally unregulated with regard to these things. And as you can see, it's the other things that aren't regulated that are causing the problem. Now, why in the world do we care? I mean, after all this stuff is now made in China or Korea or wherever. So it's not like we're going to cost American jobs if we do this. If we put standards on these things, that's not the issue. They want these things to radiate. That was the whole thing about getting lead out of the paint in your house. People thought, so all these kids, they're suffering terrible mental retardation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the number of kids eating paint chips and getting mental retardation was as great as they were talking. We had nothing to fear because the kids were going to eat all the paint off of all the houses in the entire country within 3 years. Okay, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
And
that lead paint was a good shield, just like the metal screens that we used to put on windows.
Yeah, now they've changed it to some kind of plastic.
Vinyl, yeah.
Whatever it is, yeah. So they didn't want you to have metal screens. They don't want you to have chicken wire. They don't want you to have, that's unsafe. Look at those ends. Your child could cut himself on it. They don't want you to have lead. They're trying to keep out of your hands things that will keep you from having this electromagnetic radiation. But that's not all. They now have devices where they can drive by your neighborhood and look into your home.
Yeah.
Technology that can see through your wall. Well, if you have...
Olaf, they've had that since the 70s.
Yeah, but that technology wasn't in the hands of a lot of low-cost technology version of it. Wasn't in the hands of so many people as it now is.
Yeah.
You're talking about the military level technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's turning up in everybody's community. The police are getting this stuff, and they say, well, if somebody's holding somebody hostage, we can see them, and we can see how they're holding the gun, what kind of weapons they have.
Oh dear.
We can see what they had for breakfast, how much they've had to drink. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I mean, the technology is getting to the point where you have no privacy.
Well, the cops, in a lot of instances, are wacko. I mean, just the other day, a man that was blind carrying a walking, the white cane, a walking cane, that the blind use, the police said, we're sorry, we thought it was a samurai sword. And they tased him and roughed him up terribly. Can't even tell a samurai sword from a blind cane.
Yeah, the most that could have been is a French rapier. For dueling or something of that sort, and those are usually tipped anyway. I think that this is kind of endemic, where the police are using all these excuses for doing what they're doing. But the real question is, who is it at the top who's setting the policies to try to get these technologies out there? And again, if you've got an old house that's got lead paint in the walls, and on the outside it's got asbestos shingles, wow, you are so lucky.
Yes.
Your house won't burn if there's a forest fire, and you're protected against electromagnetic field radiation.
Yeah.
I mean, now your cell phone may not work, and so you may not get one. You may stick to a landline. But wait, that's not a bad thing. And, hey, people might actually be able to understand you when you talk on the phone.
Yeah.
I think we should tell people that you and I are not connected by any cell phone technology at the moment.
Right.
We're hardwired, as they say, with fiber optics and stuff like that. So, yeah, the mark of the beast is coming. It's not here. The technology to create it is. And the people who want to create it are probably out there. We're close enough now that I would argue that the people who will, at the very least, rebuild the system are already alive. And a lot of the people who are alive now are going to live through most of the technology that we're talking about with the mark of the beast, if not all the way down to the second coming. A lot depends on what the Bible means when it talks about months. A month. Is a month 30 days, or has the orbit of the moon been disturbed by this large planet that's going to come by the Earth? Because if that happens, then the Earth, is not only going to change its rotation, but the moon may be dragged away into an orbit around the sun, and a month could turn into a year or something. So the 42 months that the beast is allowed to continue, whatever that phrase means, that could be 42 years or something close to it, depending on the exact time that the moon takes to orbit. So the time we have to spend with this mark could be a lot longer than people expect.
Oh my goodness.
And I think I've scared people enough.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Olaf. My goodness.
Again, if you want to contact me and get on that list, okay, and I'm not saying you're going to get something back right away. I'm still working on some things. But sometime over the next several months, certainly by the end of next year, you're going to have received some sort of information from me about what I'm going to be offering that is coming up here in terms of reports about Typhon, reports about the mark, what's going to be happening during this period, the next several years.
Your reports on Typhon are, oh my gosh, they are fantastic.
Thank you. I put an awful lot of work into that.
Yeah.
I mean, the density of footnotes per page there, I think I'm setting records. So, I mean, it's really important to see the documentation. I think people need to know that, yeah, this isn't just Olaf's theory.
Yeah.
No, this is something that's really going on. And I show it to you as visually as I am able to, given the limits of my word processing capabilities.
Well, doesn't Ragnarok talk about Typhon?
Yeah, Typhon's an ancient name for this object.
Yes.
But it's one of several. And it's not Mercury, it's not Mars, it's not Nibiru. It's not the thing that causes the changes in the sun. There is an object that is related to it that does that. And I go into all of the details. I explain all of this and break it down into the pieces, explain what all these things are, and show everybody all of the different objects that are out there that are involved in these end-time prophecies, so you can sort out which comes first, which is not coming at all, and what's going to happen to these various things. It's complicated to go into here, but it is once you see all of the details laid out and documented, it's pretty clear what's going to take place. The problem is this is going to unfold over a period of time, over many years. I mean, this doesn't happen tomorrow morning and it's all going to be done by tomorrow evening. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
It takes hours for this massive planet to move past the Earth and spin up our rotation. It's hard to understand the massive size and scale on which all of these things occur. We've done, 4 shows or something on Typhon?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think we did 2 or 3 shows, or a couple of shows at least, on building new cities.
Yeah.
In my view, is the best solution we could take in terms of rescuing a lot of people at once. So all of this fits together. You know, the madness to my method is becoming a little too obvious to people, I guess, at this point. But you know, it all makes sense when you put it together. And so that mailing list again, just write to Olaf, O-L-A-F, Hage, H-A-G-E, P.O. Box 427, Brunswick, B-R-U-N-S-W-I-C-K, Maine, and the abbreviation for Maine is M-E, the zip code 04011. And,
yes.
You know, send an email address as well. You're not going to hear from me right away, but you will hear from me. God willing, and the creek don't rise, as they like to say.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Olaf. As usual, your presentations are pretty extraordinary. And
I try to make them extraordinary because if they were ordinary, I wouldn't bother.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be on the Bite Show.
That's right.
Okay, Olaf. God bless you and all the listeners. And you can find Olaf's audio files at the Bite Show. Go to the audio library, click on Olaf Hage's name, and his page will open up with all of the audio files.
There are also paid audio files on CD and MP3 CD collections that you can get at Before 2012 and Beyond.com. That's all one word, Before 2012 and Beyond.com.
Okay, Olaf. Thank you, and thank everybody for listening. Good night.